to be your master of ceremonies for this event. At this time, I would like to ask you to please silence all mobile phones as we will now begin with the opening ceremony in 5 minutes. In order to facilitate the execution of the conference, we would like to provide some administrative remarks. For our online participants, please ensure that you choose your appropriate translation option within Zoom. When not speaking, please ensure your microphone stay muted. Persons speaking are asked to lower their masks in the interest of clarity of hearing. For interpretation into English, use the receiver located next to your microphones. The volume setting is at the top of your receiver.
Para la traducción en español, utilizar el aparato junto al micrófono. El volumen se encuentra en la parte superior del aparato.
The restrooms are located as you exit the conference room, directly ahead, behind the elevators. There is a medic here on site available 24 hours in room 355. It's microphone on. I still got a piece I need to say, a little piece here before then I start to call in the individuals. So I'm going to say this piece here now. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Most Honorable Mayor Amar Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Commodore Arrington Sherlin, Chief of Staff for the Barbados Defense Force and Executive Director of the Regional Security System, and General Laura Richardson, Commander of the United States Southern Command, welcome to CANSEC 2022. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, please silence all cell phones or put them on mute.
Good morning. This is Lieutenant Commander Quigley from SCO Suriname. Comms check.
We can hear you well, Lieutenant Commander.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the heads of delegation. From the Dominican Republic, Major General Jose Castello. Trinidad and Tobago, Vice Air Marshal Darrell Daniel. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Commissioner Colin John. St. Lucia, Commissioner Milton Desir. St. Kitts and Nevis, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Comrie. Jamaica, Rear Admiral Antoinette Wimes Gorman. Haiti, Divisional Commissioner Jean Pedro Mars. Guyana, Brigadier Godfrey Bess. Grenada, Deputy Commissioner Tafawa Pierre. Belize, Rear Admiral Elton Bennett. The Bahamas, Commodore Raymond King. Antigua and Barbuda, Colonel Talbert Benjamin. Joining us virtually are Dominica, Commissioner Daniel Carbone. Suriname, Colonel Henri van Axeldoen. Our hosts for CANSEC 2022 are the Commander of the United States Southern Command, General Laura Richardson. And representing the Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defense Force, Commodore Arrington Sherlin, is Lieutenant Colonel Cardus Lovell, the military advisor to the Chief of Staff. Our special guest, the Honorable Linda Tagliatella, Ambassador of the United States. And the Most Honorable Mayor Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the playing of the United States and Barbados' national anthems. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. At this time, we would like to extend a warm welcome to the Chiefs of Defense and Security, our regional partners and stakeholder organizations and observers, and our senior enlisted leaders attending in person and online. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Caribbean Nations Security Conference, CANSEC 2022. I would now like to invite Lieutenant Colonel Lovell, who is representing the Chief of Staff, Commodore Errington Sherlin, to deliver his opening remarks.
the Honorable Mayor Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Her Excellency Ms. Linda Tagliatella, U.S. Ambassador for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, General Laura Richardson, Commander, United States Southern Command, and other regional defense and security leaders, Mr. Dan Erickson, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Western Hemisphere, regional participants and observers who are joining us in person or virtually, distinguished visitors, members of the media. I bid you a warm good morning. I am indeed honored and delighted to welcome you to the beautiful island of Barbados and to the Caribbean Nations Security Conference, or as it is more commonly known, CANSEC. CANSEC has brought together this distinguished group here in Barbados in order to discuss and consider some of the difficult security challenges that we face. The security landscape is rapidly changing before our eyes, and we grapple with issues like the COVID-19 pandemic, military conflicts in various geopolitical spaces, the global effects of climate change with its implications for rising sea levels, droughts, water shortages, and increased meteorological events, among others. Caribbean nations are ever cognizant of our innate vulnerabilities, but equally mindful of our individual and collective responsibilities for regional and hemispheric security. Partnerships with stakeholders have been the traditional and encouraged method of approach as we seek to learn from the international and hemispheric regional best practices. We have over the years been able also to amass our own expertise in many instances and add value to the global discussion on issues that affect us deeply. This year's theme, multinational cooperation in a changing environment, is quite apt because it reminds us that cooperation is critical if you are to rise to meet the challenges in today's ever-changing environment. It is indeed obvious that the security cooperation is essential if you are to deal with the complex nature of the threat environment. Forums such as this conference provides an ideal platform where issues can be discussed, consensus sought, and avenues for advancement carved out. I personally look forward to engaging with you on pertinent matters related to humanitarian assistance and disaster response as we critically assess both our processes and material limitations as contextualized in increased meteorological activity during our hurricane season. Of equal importance is the myriad of threats composed by transnational criminal organizations that prey on our individual and collective vulnerabilities, and the need to have a more inclusive, cohesive, collated, and systematic approach to countering these threats in a sustained and robust manner. The Barbados Defense Force looks forward to hosting this event in partnership with our stakeholders, as we recognize that this is a positive step in understanding and addressing hemispheric and regional matters that impact on security and the stability of our region. Honorable Prime Minister, we thank you for joining us this morning. We sincerely appreciate your presence and your endorsement of this event. We look forward to your address, and we thank you from the bottom of our collective hearts for your leadership. It is certainly a pleasure for us to co-host this conference with you, General Richardson, and I wish to thank you and your staff for the work that you put in making this conference a reality. I also wish to thank Commander Mark Peterson, Colonel Shane Moran, and their team at the Barbados Defense Force and the MLO for the work that they have done so far in ensuring that this forum is successful thus far. Over the next 2 days, we will apply ourselves to finding solutions to existing and emerging threats. I look forward to robust discussions on the key topics being presented at this conference. I also anticipate the opportunities given to sit with you and to examine the various means and opportunities where we can strengthen our partnerships and forge even greater functional cooperation to help shape the security landscape within the region. Madam Prime Minister, Madam Ambassador, General Richardson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, both present and virtually, I wish you a warm welcome to CANSEC 2022. I thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Lovell. I would now like to invite the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Mr. Daniel Erickson, to deliver his opening remarks.
Good morning. Good morning. It is truly a pleasure to join you today at the Caribbean Nation Security Conference. I bring the warm greetings of my boss, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. My office has the responsibility for U.S. defense and security policy for the 34-nation region that encompasses Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, and of course the Caribbean. And right now, there's nowhere I'd rather be than with you at this conference. I would like to thank Prime Minister Mia Mottley for being here today and for her leadership both at a regional and global level. Also, thank you to Commodore Sherland and to General Richardson for hosting this important security conference. And I very much want to thank as well all the work done by the team of Ambassador Tagliatella and of course, Lieutenant Colonel Carlos Lovell and others. And most importantly, thank you to all of the delegates who are either streaming in from home and managed to figure out their video connections, and of course, those of you who figured out your flight connections to be here today. I know it wasn't the easiest trip for everyone, but we truly do appreciate your presence. The ties between the United States and the Caribbean are lasting, diverse, and deep. We are not just partners, but friends. We share a bond that is based on a belief in democracy, rule of law, and the responsibility of government institutions to serve the people. And while today we meet in a zone of peace here in the Caribbean, we also meet against the backdrop of war. I would like to commend our Caribbean partners for condemning the Russian aggression in Ukraine. We must stand together against war and for peace. The prosperity and security of the United States are linked to the growth and prosperity and security of the Caribbean. CANSEC is a clear demonstration of the Department of Defense's commitment to strengthen these bonds and partnerships. Department of Defense's substantial engagement with the Caribbean demonstrates our dedication to strengthen these relationships and to address shared interests and threats. We seek to remain the trusted defense and security partner of Caribbean nations. Our focus includes such areas as climate change, response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including $32 million in assistance, disaster resilience and health assistance efforts, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and counter narcotics trafficking, to name just a few issues. At the Pentagon, Secretary Austin has directed the Department of Defense to align priorities and capabilities to address a changing and dynamic threat landscape. This includes the role of external state actors, such as China and Russia, of course, the health threats from the COVID-19 pandemic, but also other health threats that we face, malicious cyber activities, as well as the challenges posed by climate change. Secretary Austin has recognized the importance of the Caribbean in his remarks last fall at Southcom's change of command ceremony in October 2021, where I know many of you were able to attend the ceremony for General Richardson, where Secretary Austin stated that our neighborhood is central to integrated deterrence. Integrated deterrence is Secretary Austin's vision for 21st century security that pulls together technology, operational concepts and capabilities, all woven together and deeply networked so that we can continue to deter conflict seamlessly across every domain, throughout every theater, and from every foe. On this note, I would like to note of particular relevance for the Caribbean, we have an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of our partnerships and our ability to work together as a team against transnational criminal threats through the Treaty of San Jose on Maritime Cooperation. This treaty provides all states with a valuable legal mechanism to facilitate international cooperation against TCOs operating in our region. I would also like to encourage those countries who have not already signed or ratified the San Jose Treaty on Maritime Cooperation to do so that we can more effectively continue our fight against illicit trafficking. Let me end today where I began. Today, we are very fortunate that the Caribbean is a zone of peace, but we cannot take this peace for granted. And we all know that while peace exists in the region, it's an uneasy peace in the sense that we have the challenges posed by transnational criminal networks and other networks that undermine the security of our citizens. The challenges before us are many, but the way forward is through trust and cooperation. Only through building trust and deepening cooperation will we be able to meet these challenges successfully. And here in this room, I think that we have the Caribbean's most important resource, which is friendship. Friendship among the Caribbean countries and between the United States and the Caribbean is a renewable resource. And it's one that we will seek to renew here today through communication, collaboration, concentration, and of course, conversation. With that, I would like to again thank our hosts in Barbados. I think that today we will really begin the work of deepening our friendship and the trust that's required to make sure that we are able to adequately confront all of the vital challenges before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. I would now like to invite the Commander of the U.S. Southern Command, General Laura Richardson, to deliver her opening remarks.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. So we're going to learn, not this morning with the Prime Minister's here, but we're going to do the Southcom Warrior Stance later today. And that will get everybody invigorated and excited. This is an exciting conference. And I'm so glad the Prime Minister is here because it shows the importance of our relationships, of our friendships, of the hard work that each and every one of you do together. And so this is a very symbolic conference for the Caribbean, and I'm so excited that we're able to do this today. And this week, it's beautiful weather, but as we know, we have hurricane season that will be coming, and we know what kind of weather that can bring. And so while we enjoy each other's company and the hard work that we're going to do during this conference, it's just a pleasure to be here today. Prime Minister Motley, and Lieutenant Commander Level, thank you so much for hosting us here in Barbados and for the very, very warm welcome that we have all received here. We had an icebreaker reception last night at the Coast Guard. It was just tremendous. And just everything that you have done to open your arms to the group here really says a lot about your country and about the commitment that you have. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing to host this. I also want to welcome our Ambassador Tagliatella, and thank you so much, Ambassador, as well, for the very warm welcome of my delegation, my team, and the blending of our teams together, and just the great work that everybody has been doing. It's important to me to recognize everybody here today, not individually, but we do have groups that have joined us virtually, but we also have some very important groups that are here in the room with us, which says a lot about the commitment as well. We are all in, and make no mistake about that. But we have first of all, ministers of defense, ministers of security, chiefs of defense that are here. We also have commissioners and chiefs of police as well. We have our allies that are here together from Britain, France, Canada, Netherlands. We also have adjutant generals from the states in the United States as part of the state partnership program that are online. We also have Major General, the Assistant TAG, the Assistant Adjutant General for Florida that's in the room. So please stand up, John Haas, Major General John Haas. And really appreciate you being here and having responsibility for that state partnership and coverage of the RSS and this whole area. So thank you for that. But I'd like to highlight that, and you're representing Major General Jim Eifert, the TAG of Florida. We have Sherry McCandless, that's Major General Sherry McCandless from the DC Guard, District of Columbia National Guard, that's on the line. And she accompanied me to Jamaica when we went in January. So Sherry, I'm glad you're on the line as well. I believe we have the U.S. Virgin Islands Adjutant General on the line as well, Brigadier General Kojo Knox Limbacher, which I'm sure a few of you know as well. And then also to highlight that we have, of course, the William J. Perry Center, the Fred Rudesheim and his team that are online for this conference. And certainly we have as our moderator from the Perry Center too. And then from my Jayat of South, I have Rear Admiral Scott Sharetta that's also on the line, and numerous other people that have joined because of the interest, but also the camaraderie in being part of this group for this very important mission that we have. I do want to highlight that for the regional security system, the RSS, which is turning 40 years old this year. That's a big achievement. Let's give a big round of applause for RSS. And certainly our director, Commodore Sherlin, we wish him the best and hope he's feeling better. It was good. I was able to see him for the past 2 days, and so we wish him well and getting better. But as we all know, he does a terrific job. I also want to highlight that we have CDEMA here as well, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, and Liz Riley is here, and then also CARICOM, Implementation Agency for Crime and Security Impacts. And so two very, very important agencies as well. Well, I visited Jamaica in January for Admiral Weems Gorman's change of command. And so, but this is my first time to the Eastern Caribbean. I have not been here before. So that's why it's just, so far, just a tremendous visit and trip. I've learned so much just about how connected we are. The first and only time that our first president of the United States, George Washington, traveled abroad was here to Barbados. And our first Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton, was born close by in Nevis. From Shirley Chisholm to Colin Powell to Bob Marley and Rihanna and Caribbean people have influenced every facet of U.S. history, politics, culture, music, arts, and sports. It reminds me just how close we are as neighbors, partners, and friends. I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. last month. It was like hearing month, congressional hearings. I did 3 of them, but more importantly were the 30 office calls that I did individually with all of these members of our United States Congress. And you all know how important that is, making sure that we keep them informed, that we make them aware of the challenges, but also the opportunities. And it was just a tremendous opportunity to talk about our region and everything that's going on. But it is a vitally important region to Southcom and the U.S. government and the American people. With authoritarianism on the rise, protecting human rights and helping our democracies deliver for our people is more important than ever before. We gather here at a critical time in our world history. Last month, as Dan previously said, the world witnessed and is still witnessing Vladimir Putin and the unprovoked, horrific invasion of the sovereign nation of Ukraine. It was the most flagrant violation of the most fundamental principles the international community established after World War II: self-determination and national sovereignty. For decades, Caribbean countries have long been champions of these sacred principles. A threat to democracy anywhere is a threat to democracy everywhere. CARICOM added their voice to the chorus of peace-loving democracies around the world, condemning Russia's invasion and calling for an immediate ceasefire. This region truly is a zone of peace, as all CARICOM members so eloquently stated last month. What we're doing right here at CANSEC is working together to keep the Caribbean a zone of peace. The recent crisis in Europe will undoubtedly impact the Caribbean and other regions in the world, such as increasing energy prices, which we've already seen, and the supply chain disruptions that we've already been experiencing. But I also know that the Caribbean faces unique cross-cutting threats in an ever-changing security environment. Stronger hurricanes and rising sea levels caused by climate change are destroying lives and livelihoods, tearing up family homes and reversing decades of growth. Prime Minister Motley, you said it best during COP26 at the Climate Change Summit in Glasgow last year, that a 2-degree rise in global temperature is a death sentence for the small island developing states. What's worse is the poverty and job loss caused by natural disasters, which leaves so many people vulnerable to crime and violence. Women and children especially may fall victim to human trafficking. In addition to the climate crisis, Caribbean countries seek more access to international finance and fund key development projects. Caribbean officials continue to work towards long-term food, water, public health, and energy security, and are coming together to tackle regional unemployment and poverty. But one of the most imminent threats we all face are transnational criminal organizations, or TCOs. TCOs are poisoning the Caribbean and American people, trafficking in drugs, arms, humans, and other illicit products, and worsening corruption. Local gangs engage in violent crime, kidnapping, and sexual assault. They are even involved in illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, robbing the region of 20 to 30% of fish stocks and causing the Caribbean $750 million in loss each year. Another emerging threat we can't ignore is cyber attacks. Just last year, Microsoft reported that a China-based hacking group called Nickel conducted cyber attacks against 29 countries, 4 of them in the Caribbean. Cybercrimes have only increased in the region since the pandemic, and we must do more together to defend ourselves in the cyber domain. Related to this is 5G, which will roll out in the region very soon. In the Caribbean, the US, and other democratic societies, our citizens cherish personal privacy, but some telecommunication companies linked to the PRC have been accused of allowing access to sensitive information about local citizens, which is a potential security risk for all of us. These cross-cutting threats are too powerful, too overwhelming for one nation to handle on its own, and we must work together like a cricket team or a football team, all of us with the same uniforms on and the same jersey, the same number. That's why CANSEC is so important. It's a chance for all like-minded democratic partners, both inside and outside the region, to sync up, share best practices, lessons learned, and enhance interoperability. I look forward to reviewing the progress we've made from last year, when we focused on the impacts of the pandemic on force readiness, countering TCOs, and identifying coordination gaps within our regional response to humanitarian and natural disasters here at CANSEC, or virtual. I must say virtual. We'll also discuss disaster relief and regional security challenges, as well as strategize about how we can deepen our partnerships in disaster preparedness, public health, and cybersecurity, counter-narcotics, and women, peace, and security. These areas of cooperation are what true partnerships among fellow democracies look like. This is our shared neighborhood. Neighbors encourage each other, help each other succeed, lift each other up. And as we do so, there are no strings attached and no fine print. We do it because that's what good neighbors do. We do it because we are always stronger when we work together. It's how we all ensure that the Caribbean remains a zone of peace, today, tomorrow, and always. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Richardson. I would now like to invite the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Most Honorable Mayor Amor Motley, to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished guests all, let me first and foremost acquit myself of my primary responsibility here, and that is, of course, to say welcome to Barbados. I do so willingly, and I do so with a sense of pride. This conference originated first in 1998, and Barbados was its initial host. We regrettably have not seen you since 2004. But I would like to think that in spite of the long passage of time, that there is no easing of warmth on either your side or our side towards being able to come together as one family in this neighborhood. Much has been said this morning already with respect to the common threats that we now face. I don't think any of us needs to be reminded of it, because we live it each and every day. Whether it is through our televisions, whether it is through our jobs, whether it is through our family, whether it is through just simply being able to cope with the mental adjustment necessary to function in today's world. But our role is not only cooperation, and you get that better than anyone else. Our role is also to be able to give confidence to our populations that we have this, or as we would say in Barbados and the Caribbean, we got this. And that is perhaps the most important thing now. And I'm glad that the common mission of keeping the Caribbean as a zone of peace is a foundation from which we all start today. Because Caribbean people know only too well what it is to be a theater of war. For the majority of our modern existence, we were a theater of war for people playing out their determinations to want to vanquish, to conquer, and want to literally control other regions and other people. In the post-independence region of this region, we determined that that is not what we want for ourselves. And that is why we have very simple themes that guide us. In our own case in Barbados, it has been that which was announced at the first session of the United Nations when we became an independent nation, that we shall be friends of all and satellites of none. That is the first premise of friendship, and that is the first premise of being able to secure your own long-term civilization. And why? There are times when we will agree and disagree, but there are equally times when principles are the only thing that matter. Our region has been that place, whether during the Cold War or now again, persons are seeking to be able to bring back shades of what transpired in our history. Our determination as independent nations is that that must be forever our history and not our future. It is against that backdrop, therefore, that we come together to work as one within the Caribbean community and the wider Caribbean region to ensure that in so doing, we can remove those clear and patent threats, whether those threats are, as articulated this morning, relate to the climate crisis, whether they relate to the question of counter-narcotics or illegal weapons, whether they relate to our ability to be able to fob off the consequences of fake news and social unrest, whether they relate to the consequences of war elsewhere in a globally interdependent world that effectively leads us subject to price and commodity access changes. And I say price and commodity access because even if you can pay, in some instances, access to commodities will become difficult in today's world. The truth is that with the war in Ukraine now going into its fifth or so week, we are now going to start to see, regrettably, some of the consequences of that war which have been spoken about. That is going to lead to discomfort in many of our countries with respect to prices and with respect to access to those commodities. It is going to lead, therefore, to the potential risk of us having to be able to settle our populations and to get them to understand that the world is going through a difficult moment. But it is not the first time that it has gone through, and it will regrettably not be the last because of the nature of just human civilization and our natural-made environment. A person born in 1900 did not really know stability and peace until they became close to 50 years old. I want to repeat myself because for too many of our people, the culture of contentment has so consumed us that we believe that we have a divine right to prosperity and a divine right to stability. Regrettably, we have no such divine right, but we can make it happen if we work together. And as General Richardson said, we are always stronger working together. I remind you that in the first 50 years of the last century, that person would have known what it is as a young teenager to see World War I and all of the deprivation that World War I would have occasioned. And when they thought that there was to be celebration on the occasion of the ending of World War I, then came the Spanish flu. And when the Spanish flu took over for 2 years, causing millions of people to die, and people thought that they had turned the corner with that, there was a brief respite of glee, of perhaps excessive behavior, and in no time at all, in less than a decade, the world had the Great Depression that literally saw families fall to the ground and literally saw people lose all that they had. And then came the rise of fascism and populism, which continued to play a serious role in literally causing the decay of much of what we came to value in terms of freedom in our societies. In our part of the world, we saw it with the continuous uprisings and revolutions and riots throughout the Caribbean, all in the 1930s. And then, of course, came World War II, which lasted until 1945. I've gone through these things because it is too easy to forget. It is too easy to forget. And when we forget, we allow ourselves to repeat the mistakes of the past. We have a solemn obligation always to be conscious of our history and to be determined not to repeat the mistakes of it. And that is why I say that at the outset of this, the Caribbean, regrettably, for too much of our modern existence in the last 5 centuries, has been a zone of conflict, not a zone of peace. And for those who watch on, you may perhaps better understand why then we insist that there be that commitment to us being a zone of peace. I also want to remind us that in today's world, with the kind of power that is available to us technologically, transparency and sincerity are critical if we are going to keep societies bonded together and if we are going to keep the global compact what it ought to be. And I say so conscious of that it is not only therefore what suits us to reflect on, but what we say and what we do must be capable of that transparent assessment and analysis by all of our citizens and not just by a handful. And what do I mean? Territorial integrity must mean territorial integrity for all. Non-incursion must also mean non-incursion for all. Non-interference must also mean non-interference for all. And it is to those high and lofty goals established in the United Nations Charter that we must continue to work for. But equally, we must ask ourselves whether an institution that was formed 76 years ago, 77 this year, can continue to function in the same way that it did, given the fact that at that time there were only 50 countries in existence that led to its formation. The majority of our nation states found in this room did not even exist as sovereign entities when the United Nations was formed. It therefore brings into question the whole issue of the role of the Permanent Five in the Security Council, and whether, as I've said in almost every speech, we can have first-class and second-class nations. We already know through our commitment to democracy that we cannot have first-class and second-class citizens. And if we know that as our commitment to democracy, then our commitment to international polity and stability must equally mean that we cannot have first-class and second-class nations. This issue of the reform of the United Nations, as well as the reform of the Bretton Woods institutions, is absolutely critical today if we are going to go forward with credibility and stability in this world. And I trust and pray that these conversations will take place across the world and across every sector, including yours. I believe that our cooperation over the course of the period of time that we have been working in CANSEC has been to our benefit. And I believe that it has removed a lot of the doubt and difficulties that might otherwise be influencing relationships. To that extent, this is best seen, of course, in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. And I'm therefore glad that SEDIMA is a part of this conference today, because in the Eastern and Southern Caribbean, apart from the other wars that are traditional, we fight now daily, weekly, and monthly the war against the climate crisis. And why do I say so? Many of you may say, well, we only see a hurricane every year or every 2-3 years. But there are parts of our country that see drought every day. And that drought is as a result of both groundwater crises as well as saltwater incursion into coastal wells that comes from coastal erosion and also obviously seawater rise. We therefore thank each of us, want to thank you for the cooperation as the United States government in working with smaller nations. Your capacity is clearly beyond anything that we have, but equally, your commitment to a successful neighborhood and to a family functioning together is what determines that when people are in need, that we each rise to the occasion and come to their rescue. We hope that those opportunities will not be limited, as I said to you yesterday, to areas of disaster relief or traditional military support, but the new areas of cybersecurity are now engulfing our nations in a major way, not just in the form of the attacks or the ransomware attacks and the hacking, but regrettably in the formulation of fake news, which, as we saw with much of what has transpired in this pandemic, can influence behavior of millions of people in a way that may well be detrimental to their own health. This is part of our modern reality. Like everything else, technology, as we know, is a tool. And a tool can be used for good or it can be used for evil. It is up to us to ensure that it is used for good. My government is happy, therefore, to be here to be sponsoring and hosting this conference today. I particularly am enthused. Many of you may not be aware, some of you will be, that in a previous life that I had responsibility for the security for 10 nations of the region in preparation for Cricket World Cup. And it was on that occasion that we determined as a Caribbean community that we would not simply be preparing to host the world's third largest sporting event, but that we were committed to build capacity and institutional capacity in particular in this region. It therefore led in this very room to our agreeing that security should become the fourth pillar of Caribbean community cooperation. And that was literally as a result of our cooperation together in 2007. Similarly, the memorandum of the treaty that was signed at that point in time provided for collaboration between all of the military establishment and the civil establishment of this region for man-made and natural disasters. Had that treaty not been signed, Jamaican soldiers would not have been able to enter Dominica at the time of Hurricane Irma, when Dominica needed it more than ever. It is against that backdrop that I'm happy not just to be here, but when I consider that less than a mile away at St. Anne's Fort, the formation of the regional security system was also settled with the then Brigadier Sir Rudyard Lewis, who, as you know, was not only the first Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defense Force, but also the founding leader of the regional security system. In this, our 40th year, I'm happy that our neighbors to the south, Guyana, have determined that they will join Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean states in the regional security system. And we truly look forward to being able to build a platform for all other military establishments in the Caribbean to be part and parcel of that RSS, and obviously the civil establishments as well. My friends, I say these things to give us context, because we have not just landed here today. The 40 years of the RSS, the reality of now what is 15, almost 15 years of security being a pillar of the Caribbean community, the establishment of CARICOM Impacts that is here today, and I want to, and the person who now leads it up was my assistant at the time for the formation of it, and I also want to thank the JRCC that is located in Barbados, the Regional Intelligence Fusion Center, which also came out of those discussions. All of these things happened because we chose to cooperate. And because we chose to cooperate, it meant that those people in Roseau, in Dominica, or those in St. George's in Grenada, or those in Kingstown and St. Vincent, or those in Barbados, in Bridgetown, who needed to benefit from the capacity of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, were able to do so seamlessly in the last 2 years, because 40 years ago we determined that we would cooperate and have a regional security system. I can go on, I've given you the example of the treaty arrangements, and I can go on and give multiple other examples. Suffice it to say that having laid out to you what has been your history, it is for you today now to go forward in cooperation and help us understand how you can better assist in the defense of our region, whether it is in the defense particularly of the Caribbean Sea, our blue economy, and in every instance our maritime jurisdiction is significantly larger than our territorial land territories, or how you are going to save us and help us manipulate this difficult world that now has technology available through tools that are available to each and every person globally that has access to a phone, something as simple as a phone, and to what extent, therefore, you can protect us against those kinds of cyber attacks and guerrilla attacks that might otherwise be difficult for individual countries to be able to manage on their own. This, we expect, along with continued collaboration on the very vexatious issue of the climate crisis, will be the outcome of your deliberations. And as leaders of government, I can assure you that we look forward to how we can strengthen our individual but our regional participation and collaboration. And as a result, we therefore look forward to learning of the outcomes of this CANSEC conference. I want to end by simply saying to you that there will be a condition for your departure from this nation, that you do not take another 14 years to return. And I'm sure that whether it is me or a successor, Barbados will always welcome you, because it is from this location that you started this level of collaboration. And we therefore wish you all the very best. Do not allow the Barbados Defense Force to take up all of your time. This country is more than the BDF, And I trust and pray that you will come to understand that. And for those of you who are here without spouse or family, I trust and pray that you will want to ensure that they do not rely on hearsay, but that you are in a position to let them see for themselves. Because when you come to Barbados, you will always remember that it is just that place that you will just always come back to. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we will proceed outside for the group photo. Those invited to participate in the group photo are identified on the screen. Immediately following the group photo, we will reconvene in the conference room.